Cowboy Bebop was a fiasco that put most people off the idea that anime or mangas can be adapted into live action, especially by Hollywood. But for a very good reason, One Piece is different. And that reason is that creator Eiichiro Oda was involved at every level of production, even to the point that the series wouldn't be released until he was happy with it. And that seems to be the key to making these things work, because Cowboy Bebop creator Shinichiro Watanabe was not involved with the production of the live-action version of his seminal work. And when he tried to watch it, he couldn't even get through the opening scene, because in his words, it was clearly not Cowboy Bebop. Now, cards on the table, I had never read or watched the original One Piece anime or manga, though the anime was on my to-do list. So before I could write this review, I had to sit and watch at least a few episodes of the anime to give myself a base level understanding before venturing into the live action remake. In case any of you are new to my vids, I have to point out that I am a stickler for keeping things original, and deviation can often drive me crazy because my mind just wants things to be perfect. And so when I see things that are being changed and monkeyed about with, pun intended, it makes me want to explode, and watching this live action had me almost bouncing out of my seat as I fought with my innate annoyance at the changes that were made to the original. What, you may ask, was bothering me? Well, the answer is just about everything. Things were very different from the anime, and I couldn't help but get hung up on them at first. And that is an important note, because while events are to some degree different, the overall narrative is almost exactly the same as the anime, and most changes were needed due to time constraints, though some must have been because of budget and the difficulty with trying to recreate the complexities of the anime, like for instance our introduction to Buggy the Clown, whose scenes were entirely different from the anime, to the point where I can't remember a single crossover moment in which they really resembled each other. Whereas our introduction to Roronoa Zoro, the pirate hunter, was almost exactly the same as the anime, so it is a bit swings and roundabouts, but by about the 5th episode, I had made peace with the idea of it being the same but different. Now let's get this out of the way, because I am sure you were all wondering whether this series is woke or not, and the answer is, drumroll please, yes it is, but, and this is a big but, no, not that big but. It is only woke so far as the casting goes, and even then, it is mostly just background unimportant characters that have been race swapped. Except of course for the main character himself, Monkey D. Luffy, who has also been race swapped, though I'm damned if I know what race the actor is. I just thought he was a slightly darker shade of white. But when they represent him as a kid, they use a little African-American looking boy, who has no resemblance to the adult actor, and makes those scenes seem unconnected, which is narratively kind of jarring. I will choose my words very carefully here, because YouTube is not to be trusted. It is not a free speech loving platform. But they chose someone who looks like a girl to play the character of Kobe, and while it is clearly a girl, the character itself is very weak and not particularly masculine looking, so the person fits very well, and after being distracted for a while, I finally managed to get used to this interpretation of the character, which on the whole is really quite faithful to the original. But nevertheless, the casting of Monkey D. Luffy is brilliant, because I really can't think of anyone who fits the role better. The actor is tailor-made for the job, and the same goes for all the main characters. The casting is almost perfect. It is astonishing to me in this day and age that the Hollywood wokerati weren't livid at the creative decision not to bastardize the cast and make them as multicolored as possible. And I know I can be a bit hyperbolic, but I'm not kidding when I say the casting is just about perfect. It reminds me of when you buy a classic car and the paint and bodywork is beautiful. You walk around it and, okay, you may find a small scuff on the rear bumper, Nami, but she looks great. And then you have a look underneath and the chassis is looking a bit worse for woke, wear. It isn't rusted to hell, but it wasn't galvanized and it's showing a few winters. But hey, she runs great and has many miles left on the clock. And that is One Piece live action. The acting was generally really good and manic and energetic enough to mimic the anime. Roronoa Zoro was very good, although I did think the way he voiced the character left a little to be desired, too whispery. Nami was good enough, and grew on me as the series went along. Sanji was cool. Special shoutouts to Vincent Reagan as Garp, Craig Fairbrass as Zeph, Peter Gaddiot as Shanks, Jeff Ward as Buggy, and Stephen John Ward as Mihawk. Those guys were overachievingly excellent, along with a bunch of others who deserve recognition but who are unfortunate enough to not be jumping out at me right now. I can only imagine that having the creator of One Piece on board is what gave us a series that actually resembled its source material. Obviously there are aspects that aren't quite perfect. I mean, where are you going to find a 9.5 foot tall person to play Garp? And outside of Korea, girls so slim that they can hide behind lampposts without turning sideways are thin on the trees. So having to cast more average shaped women is generally unavoidable. Suffice to say that this is a fantastic series, and I'm looking forward to season 2. It is heartening to know that Hollywood still has the ability to make something this good, although with the caveat that they had to have someone who was truly passionate about the subject matter looking over their shoulder and okaying their work, making sure they didn't deviate too far from the source material. Because you just know that if Hollywood had been left to their own devices, this would have ended up being as big a flop as Cowboy Bebop, or worse, since One Piece is current and not 20 years old. It is a shame that Hollywood has been filtering out all the talented people in the industry by hiring based on their agenda and not merit, but I'm glad that just this once, their cult of identity has failed to ruin a promising franchise, at least for now. This has been Movies Suck, thinking that maybe, just maybe, we're starting to turn a corner, and there's a chance things might start to get better. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.